My father worked for the CIA, he was a linguist.
Have you ever noticed that it's easy to sit and listen to a 3-hour Andrew Tate podcast, yet so difficult to watch the average person speak for 10 minutes? That's not a coincidence. Andrew Tate is a master of hypnosis and neuro-linguistic programming. Now imagine if you could do the same.
As a master manipulator, I know when someone's trying to manipulate.
And it's not just Andrew Tate who uses this. It's most elite marketers, governments, CIA operatives.
All corporations and governments use NLP.
Yeah, all the corporations, the governments, the intelligence communities, they're all using NLP.
Cutting out filler words and using open body language doesn't make you a good marketer. In fact, you sound like everybody else.
I think it's probably the least discussed superpower on earth is being able to speak well.
So in this video, we're going to be covering the high-level communication tactics that Andrew Tate uses to immerse you into his speech and influence millions of minds. So in case you're employed and you missed all the recent drama, Andrew Tate recently went to Miami. He meets up with some streamers. Some of them end up playing anti-Semitic music on a coach on their way to somewhere or on a bus. And then what happens is Andrew Tate goes on a series of podcasts where he starts saying he doesn't condone anti-Semitism, he doesn't agree with the music whatsoever, anti-Semitism's childish, and now his fans and his viewers start going crazy at him. They're thinking, why is he completely 180'd on us? This is the same man who was playing anti-Semitic music from his Bugatti in Dubai just 3 months ago on Twitter. What's changed? He's owned by the Jews, he sold his soul, Andrew Tate's not the same anymore. All sorts of stuff getting thrown at him, right? Then, however, he goes on the Jack Neal podcast. And on the Jack Neal podcast, he again changes his stance. However, this time, interestingly, he uses the art of neuro-linguistic programming and a series of other dark manipulation and marketing strategies to shift the viewer's perspective on him. And this is nothing new, guys. Andrew Tate has been doing this since his global rise to fame. All right, and this is what separated him from all the other gurus. He's a master of communication, neuro-linguistic programming, and marketing. And in this video, we're going to be unpacking the strategies he used to manipulate not only his fans, but you watching this video and anyone watching it who is not familiar with the art of NLP.
And these are advanced marketing tactics that you can use within your own business, within your own content, so you can better position yourself in the mind of your audience, in the mind of your consumers, your customers, so that you can get them closer to that buying phase, number one. You can build more trust, you can build more authority, and be revered amongst them. So with that being said, let's get straight into the video.
Look, I've never said anything positive about Israel in my life ever. But I think this whole anti-Semitic movement online, if we're going to actually truthfully address it as professionals, has it gotten out of control? I'm not sure.
What he said there might have sounded very innocent. To truthfully address this as professionals, he's kind of just said it. But what he's done is actually a lot more calculated than what it seems on the surface. He's deployed an NLP practice called identity level framing. It's a very common NLP practice. But what he's done is he spoke directly to the identity of his viewers by assuming that they're professionals, they value logic over emotion, etc., etc., etc. Now, this is very effective because they're way more likely to comply with that. Everybody wants to be a professional. Everybody wants to be seen as a professional. Then if he would have just said, let's put emotions to the side. This gets and primes his viewers to think from his frame, on his mental model. And now, why does he want people to remove emotion and focus just on logic? Well, we've got to look at the concept of manipulation, what it actually is. Manipulation is getting someone to think something, changing and shifting someone's beliefs without them truly even knowing, for your benefit. And what happens is, when you remove someone's emotion out of things and you make them fixate just on the logic side of things, you remove that gut feeling, that gut instinct. And that's very, very powerful when manipulating, because you might feel as though something's wrong, but the logic side of things will overpower it and you'll think, it makes sense logically. You might have even felt it when someone's manipulated you and you felt deep down in your gut that something's wrong, but you think, logically, it makes sense. This is exactly where Andrew Tate wants his viewers to be.
And it's a very persuasive NLP tactic. People use it in sales, people use it in marketing, people use it in debating, like Andrew Tate is doing in this case. Oh, maybe you couldn't say it's debating, but it is debating. He's debating the viewers in a sense. Yeah, he's belief shifting. But with that being said, guys, you can use this in your marketing. You can use it in your info business. Charlie Morgan actually uses this in a very interesting way. You might have seen at the beginning of a Charlie Morgan video, what does he say? He says, now, if you can't even stay and watch a video for 10 minutes, then you are absolutely cooked. You're never going to make it, so you might as well click off now. Now, the video's not even started, but you're thinking, fuck, I kind of have to watch the whole thing now. what am I going to do? I'll feel like an absolute bum if I click off the video now. And what he's doing there is he's speaking to your identity. And now, even if you're just 10% more likely to stay and watch the whole thing, he wins. He makes more money. He gets more views. Everything explodes for him.
The persuasion is in the dissonance. That dissonance that it creates. That feeling of I'm going against who I know I am. That is what's persuasive, and that's why it's manipulation at the highest level. This is market. This is unprecedented levels of market.
And it's all intentional. Don't think for 1 second that this was accidental or coincidental. This is a known NLP practice, and he uses many of them, as we're going to get onto in the second point here.
The Jews don't stop you going to the gym. If you have skinny arms, the Jews didn't do it. But there are people on the internet who will argue, yes, they did, because Jews have convinced us to be demoralized, and my dog bit me because a Jew told it to, and it goes so far the other way that they haven't escaped any prison. They're back in a new prison, which is blaming the Jews for everything. So there's certainly some valid arguments, and I've been very clear on what those arguments are. But I have to be very honest with this anti-Semitic crap. I have to be very honest.
So what he's done there is actually very interesting. He's directly acknowledged the beliefs of his audience by saying, and while there are certainly some valid arguments to this, I've got to be honest with this anti-Semitic XYZ. You get the point. And what this does is it actually triggers something called the fair-minded heuristic. It triggers that thought of, well, if he can acknowledge both sides of this argument, then he must be rational. He must be an open-minded person. He must be a fair and just person, right? There's no bias from his side. And people drop their guard. They're more likely to listen to him now. They're more receptive to what he has to say. And this is all very subconscious. He's operating in the subconscious realm of his viewers' minds. And that's how marketing is most powerful, when they don't even realize that this is happening to them. It's a strategic concession in order to calibrate trust. And this is especially effective when you're looking to handle objections, instill beliefs, break beliefs within your content.
It's a very, very persuasive NLP tactic, and I'll give you guys an example of how we might use this in our case. So our audience is full of entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are, well, naturally quite stubborn, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have become entrepreneurs. So if I'm going to sit there and tell you, guys, don't do scripted content, it's not good, you need to do raw content instead, it builds more trust, more authenticity, more authority, instantly you're thinking, whoa, Alex Hormozy does scripted content, what about Iman Gaji? Well, I've been doing scripted content my whole life, and it's serving me well, why should I listen to you? Who the flip are you? Instantly, you've got a whole load of objections and you're fighting back. But if I instead say, look, I understand why someone might resort to scripted content. It certainly has its perks and it's pretty good. However, raw content, you build more trust, you build more authority, your viewers see a different side to you, X, Y, and Z. Suddenly you're thinking, maybe he has a point. Maybe I should give it a go. Maybe I should try raw content. See there, I've not spiked your pride and your intrinsic rebellious nature, like Daniel was talking about earlier, to just find all the negative in what I've said and try and fight back against it. Now it's not a game of, okay, we're going at war to see who's right. No, now we're actually just working together to try and figure out the best solution for you.
Exactly, and this is a tactic that he deploys very, very often. Okay, I almost choked. But I'm going to show you a clip here of when he's talking about how arrogance is very important as an entrepreneur, I think it was. But this is a very controversial take, right? Most people would agree that arrogance is a negative thing. However, he's talking about how it's a positive thing. But watch how he frames it and phrases it in order to drop the guard of his viewers so that they're more easily able to acknowledge his point and take it.
I think in the modern world where arrogance is constantly frowned upon, of course, we all know arrogant fuckers who we don't like. But arrogance with complete competence can actually be quite comforting.
So as you can see there, he acknowledged his viewers' beliefs, but then he slowly started to deter away into his own line of thinking and slowly started to get his viewer into the same line of thinking as he was. And I'm going to explain to you how breaking a belief in a viewer's mind works, because they go through 3 stages. Number 1, the brain detects a contradiction. Number 2, the ego and the identity defense actually gets triggered as well. And then lastly, the brain starts to scatter and look for counterexamples to why your point is wrong. Automatically, you've lost because the viewer's guard is high. You try to break their belief that they've had for God knows how many years. Automatically, they're not going to be very receptive to what you have to say whatsoever. But when you acknowledge their side of the argument, instantly, subconsciously, their guard drops. It lowers. And then when you're at this stage, you slowly start to guide them towards your line of thinking. You slowly start to guide them towards your point. And this is how you actually break and mold a viewer's beliefs. And when you approach breaking and instilling beliefs in this way, now all of a sudden the mind doesn't have to pick between one belief or the other. It can see and acknowledge both beliefs to be compatible. So instead of a complete alteration of belief there, it's more so a slight deviation. And this is how manipulation is done. This is how you instill and break beliefs in your viewers and in your audience.
And what's interesting is that you can also do the complete opposite to this. Instead of entering the mind through a common agreement, you can enter through a common disagreement as well. So you'll see Andrew Tate said,
If someone comes up to me and says, hey, Israel's government is justified in their genocide, I'm going to say, no, they're not. I think their genocide is completely disgusting. I disagree with nearly everything the Israeli government does. I would argue that the ADL has far too much control over American politics.
I disagree with nearly everything the Israeli government does. So now instantly the viewer's thinking, oh, okay, well, he's right on that. I disagree with that too. Okay, let me listen to what he's actually saying. And the reason that this is effective is because of something called belief inertia. What you have to understand about beliefs is beliefs don't just flip overnight. You don't just say something to someone and then cool, they've completely changed their belief system. No, it's a very slow and gradual process. I want you to look at it like a train. When a train turns, it doesn't just go like that at a right angle. It doesn't just hit a standstill and then fucking rotate 90 degrees and go left. No, it slowly curves. The track slowly curves and it goes. And it's the exact same with your beliefs. And this is a very, very good tactic to use, again, in your videos. You as a marketer, let's say, for example, one of your ICP's most common objections is, course sellers are scammers. I don't want to invest into courses. I'm so scared of getting scammed. You would say something like, I agree, man. There's a lot of scammy course sellers out there and it's a shame. It's an absolute shame. But the key is you would have to give a reason as to why you're different. You have to differentiate yourself. And how might you do that? You could say, and that's why I offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. Because I want you to know and buy with confidence, knowing that I'm not a scammer, I care about my student results, and that if you're not happy with what you get in the program, you can take all your money back. So you can see how now, you might even be beginning to realize as we're both giving you all of these NLP practices, damn, I see that guy using that. Oh crap, Alex Hormozi used it in this video. The best marketers have been using NLP for a couple years and nobody is teaching this. We are the first ones in the info space to openly come out and give away all of the NLP secrets and the secrets of advanced marketing. So guys, make sure you subscribe as well. Cheeky mid-video CTA, because we're going to be releasing a lot more of these videos too. So stay tuned.
Exactly. And just going back to that point that you mentioned, when you do phrase it this way, now you've transitioned the mindset of your viewer from all course sellers are scammers, I'm not buying, to course sellers are scammers, so I'm going to pick the right one and I'm going to be cautious when buying. Do you see the subtle difference there? It's not a complete 180 or 90 degrees, as Hyder said. It's a slight deviation into your sort of train of thinking. And then that way you can slowly begin to instill beliefs into them that will get them closer to that buying process.
Yeah, like getting on the plane. Getting on a plane. If someone's scared of flying, you can't tell them, look, planes don't crash, it never happens. Because no, they're going to pull up an article of some flight that crashed. What you can do with them is say, all right, look, some airlines do crash, so here's what we're going to do when we're booking a trip. We're going to avoid Air India, we're going to book with this airline, and now he's comfortable, he's a happy flyer.
And also the powerful Jews who I meet and who I know brag about that. They're not ashamed of that. They actually say, you know, if you say to a Jew as a non-Jewish person, you control everything, they say you're anti-Semitic. But when you sit with them in private, they're like, we control everything. And they think it's funny. So all of that, I've been very clear on my positions, but people seem to believe I should just, I don't know, walk around and randomly attack any man who comes up to me who hints that he might have visited Israel at some point. And I think the reason we have this phenomenon is people are trying to escape the matrix, right? People are trying to escape their enslavement and understand how the world works. But the pendulum swings both ways. People are waking up and saying, I don't understand why my life is shit. And then they're researching online and going, my life is shit because of the Jews. But then they're getting enslaved in a different trap at the other side, because then they're saying, oh, so I can't win and everything in life is permanently shit because of the Jews. The Jews don't stop you going to the gym. If you have skinny arms, the Jews didn't do it.
So from that clip there, you can see he speaks in examples, analogies, metaphors. He's constantly got some sort of language in there that makes you picture something in your head. It makes you visualize what he's saying. And this is extremely effective because we as humans are visual creatures. This is why you can sit there and you can watch a 3-hour long Andrew Tate podcast and it feels like you've been watching him for 30 minutes. Because whenever he's saying something, you're picturing exactly what it is that he's saying in your head. You're constantly in your own world. He's got you completely enveloped in his language. It's very, very powerful.
Yeah, it's a lot of dopamine. And when you compare listening to a 3-hour Andrew Tate podcast, which is extremely entertaining, to watching a 10-minute video from someone who's, quite frankly, a muggle and doesn't know how to communicate, it's hard. It's hard. Even though it's only 10 minutes, it's hard. And that's the power of using NLP and specifically here, descriptive language. Guys, in just a minute, he used 4 picture painting examples, let's call them. He gave the example that when he sits with his Jewish friends, they think it's funny. He gave the example, or the hypothetical, I should say, that, oh, should I just now randomly attack any man that comes up to me and says he's from Israel? He used the metaphor of the pendulum swinging both ways. The example of the Jews not stopping from you at home, going to the gym. That's 4 picture painting points in 1 minute, guys.
And good communication is the real retainer. If you're thinking here, I need to just invest thousands into editing, don't get me wrong, editing can help. It definitely can. However, the real retainer, the thing that will never go away, the thing that will follow you through every bit of marketing that you choose to do is your communication skills. Because he used there 4 picture painting examples in 1 minute. That's 1 every 15 seconds. Imagine what that does to your brain. Imagine how dopaminergic his speech is. And it's, constantly you're thinking.
And it's a superpower, because when you have the skill of communication, you can enter any niche, any industry, and disrupt it just like that. Just like that. That's how powerful the skill is.
Exactly. This isn't something that you could use in your videos. This is something that you absolutely need to start using in your videos. This is what's going to separate you. This is what separates the average marketers from the real elite high-level marketers.
And I'm not an internet streaming clown. I'm a genuine A-list celebrity. In fact, I've been told multiple times by many different people that I am literally the most famous man in the world. I've been told that. I was the most Googled man in the world, and after being locked in my house for 3 years, I thought, you know, everyone's over Andrew Tate, maybe it's all over, no one cares. I can't go anywhere. If I walk down the street, I am flooded in every city on the planet, everywhere I go. Today I met Chinese Trump. You've seen Chinese Trump?
No.
No, he's a Chinese guy who does Trump impressions. I just met him coincidentally here in LA. And he says, you have no idea how famous you are in China. I was like, in China? He goes, no Westerners are famous in China, but you are. It's like, am I? I met Steven Seagal's son, who told me that his school project, or the school project of all the young men in his school, was about me. And he goes to school in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. Like, I can't go anywhere. So I am literally one of the most famous people on the planet. I'm not some nobody streamer who can do these silly things. I have very important things going on. I make hundreds of millions of dollars.
Here, he's used a very common NLP tactic called status anchoring. And this is one of the few NLP tactics that are actually quite commonly used in the info space. What he's doing is he's overwhelming you with status signals. First, he tells you he's the most famous man in the world. Then he's telling you he's the most Googled man in the world. Then he talks about how in Mongolia, kids are making school projects about him, and that's a flex, you got to give it to him. Then he starts talking about how he's famous in China. Who's famous in China? He's overwhelming you with all these status signals to the point where even his biggest hater is going to have to sit there and think, you know what? All right, okay, he at least knows what he's talking about to some degree. He has to. He's just giving you irrefutable evidence and he's completely overwhelming you with it because it's so relentless. Guys, a lot of people say to me, but Haida, I don't really want to flaunt figures in my content. I want to be humble. I don't like to give my business away. And look, by all means, feel free to do that if that's what you want to do. But I'm going to tell you right now, you are not going to make anywhere near as much money as those who flaunt their successes and their achievements. Because it's not about boasting. What it is about social proof. It's about status anchoring. Because people are going to be far more likely to take action on your advice, believe in what you're saying, and ultimately pay for your program.
Exactly. And not only do you have to mention these status anchoring things and show your authority, but you've got to repeat it. He didn't tell you he was famous once. No, he told you multiple times. Famous man in the world, Google, known in Mongolia, known in China, constantly repeating, I'm famous, I'm famous, I'm famous, I'm famous, until it gets to the point where even the most skeptical buyers have no choice but to actually believe it. Joseph Goebbels, he was the minister of the Third Reich, one of the best marketers to ever live. Now, obviously, he was a Nazi, so people will have their views on him. But undeniably, he was an extremely good marketer. He said, repeat a lie enough times and people will begin to believe it. Now, obviously, this isn't a lie in this case. He actually is famous. And in your case, it won't be a lie either. You should only flaunt social proof that is actually true. However, this statement or this quote also applies to this point as well. Because although it's not a lie, you do have to constantly repeat it for the people with skepticism to actually end up digesting your point and believing it's actually true. And of course, we all know snobs that they'll rub it in your face too much and they'll overly flaunt. You don't need to overly flaunt, but the key here is balance. You need to repeat yes, but don't just constantly, oh, look at me. No. Because then you just come across as, well, like I mentioned, quite snobby.
And those of you that have been switched on and truly listening to what we've been saying in this video will have spotted the NLP tactic Daniel used in that sentence.
Well, there you go.
But guys, this is very, very useful. Don't have any imposter syndrome. If you have an achievement, don't be afraid to tell it to your audience. Let's move on to the next point.
And I think these streamers just have nothing to lose. They don't understand how the world works. They're not actually famous like I am. They haven't been around enough or been offered anything of significance to truly understand how you must negotiate life as a man. And they've not suffered for their views. If these people online screaming, "Hail every 5 seconds," and doing the Hitler salute and saying we need to gas all the Jews, if any of them mattered, they wouldn't be online anymore.
But do you not think Nick Fuentes has suffered for his views?
Absolutely he has. Nick is someone who has suffered, which is why I respect Nick, which is why Nick, after the outrage of this little clip, said, I totally understand Andrew's position. Because Nick is a smart person. But then there were some other streamers who were pretending that what I did was somehow wrong. But that's because they're nobodies. Nobodies, of course, have a view. But Nick seems to understand me quite well, and he's the most famous anti-Semite of all. And even he is saying, I understand Andrew's position. And he has suffered for his views, of course. But even Nick is not that extreme. Nick tells people on his show, don't go around screaming, kill all the Jews. Don't go around saying Hitler. Don't let everyone know at your university you're an anti-Semite. That's not intelligent. That's not smart. Whereas other streamers are saying, no, you need to tell them all to fuck off all the time. You can't win that way.
Okay, so in this one, he's actually doing something very interesting again. He's using the in-group elevation, out-group degradation method. This is another NLP tactic in which you basically divide and conquer. You guys have all heard of divide and conquer, right? He splits the audience into two categories. There's the people who get it and the people who don't. The people who've suffered and the people who've not. The Nick Fuentes and Andrew Tates of the world who are culture war leaders, and then the sneakers of the world who are just sat in their room criticizing and making comments. Not my thoughts or my opinions. I couldn't care less, to be honest. But this is Tate's narrative, right? And when you create two groups like this, it's a feud. It's a feud. And the viewers naturally want to position themselves with the winning tribe, right? This is something that's innate in us. It's inherent in us. Naturally, it's in our instincts to not only be very tribal and belong to a group, but belong to the winning group, belong to the correct group. So you can do this very easily, and you can position your points in a way where there is a feud in beliefs. There's a right side and the wrong side.
And guys, again, this is quite commonly seen in the info space. In fact, let me correct myself. Not commonly, but it can be seen on a few occasions. You look at creators like Hamza. You all know him, self-improvement guy. He has the Jeffreys and the Adonises of the world. And he creates that sort of divide between his audience. I don't want to be a Jeffrey. I want to be an Adonis. Then he creates Adonis School, and all of his fans and his followers join it because they want to become like Adonis. And then we have Luke Belmar. Luke Belmar used to talk about the glitches and the bots of the world. And the bots are the guys who just follow the system and their program. And the glitches are the guys who break out and they biohack and they do all of the stuff he preaches.
And Andrew Tate with the G's and the brokies.
Exactly.
And then he's the ultimate top G at the very top.
Yeah. He's the ultimate top G at the top. Now, all of the examples I've given you there are all huge marketing campaigns, and it's all on a massive scale. But you can also do this on a smaller scale, like Andrew Tate did in this clip, where you essentially create a divide between people who understand individual points or beliefs to incline people to accept your point of view.
Exactly. And we've used this one multiple times, both on a big scale and on a small scale. Back in the day, we used to have something called the Master Communicators Academy. It was an academy where we taught people how to communicate. And in it, when we were marketing for that product, constantly we would refer to people who didn't know how to communicate as muggles and people who really did know how to communicate as master communicators. And what did we find? We found that in our community, everybody said, oh, I joined because I didn't want to be a muggle. I want to be a master communicator. It's very, very powerful when you can give people a tangible end goal of what they want to become, number one, but also what they don't want to become. Even better if it speaks to their current state of self as well, and it speaks to their current identity, which is, it'll be good because it puts them in that pain.
Yeah. Maybe we should bring that back and NLP all of you guys.
I mean, you mentioned
Muggles.
it. You mentioned it.
Yeah,
you
I've already started, yeah.
So who knows? Maybe we bring it back.
Obviously, things like this work better on a B2C audience. Now we have a B2B audience. It's a little bit different, but hey, business owners are still humans. You guys can still get NLP just like anyone else.
You've probably been
Easily.
NLP'd a few times in this video alone.
Oh, 100%. Muggle. Sign up with the link in the description.
Exactly.
Anyway.
So that's how we did it on a grand scale. Then on a smaller scale, we do it constantly with points. For example, if I were to do it on a point trying to get you to do scripted content, we always use this example. I promise you, we don't really mind scripted content that much, but it's just a good example to use. But let's say I wanted to get you to start doing scripted content or stop doing scripted content. I would say, well, there's two types of people, right? There's the people who constantly waste multiple days scripting their content. And they stay behind because they're spending so much time scripting their content. And of course, there's the exception to the rule, like there is with every single rule, right? There's the Alex Hormozes and the Iman Gardjis who do really well with scripted content. However, those who are capitalizing on the trend of raw content are revolutionizing the game. They are getting so many more videos out every single day. They're so much more consistent because there's such less resistance to actually making the videos. These are the guys who will make it far. These are the guys who are going to be the future of content creation. Now, all of a sudden, I've grouped it into two people. There's the people who are staying behind because they're spending days scripted content. And then there's people who are revolutionizing the game with raw content. Which group are you going to want to be in? You're going to want to be in the ones who are doing the raw content, right?
And guys, NLP is not just used by marketers, it's used by politicians, CIA operatives, governments, world leaders. This is all very underground marketing, or like I just established, not just marketing, but underground ways of manipulating people, shifting people's beliefs. You got to make sure that you use NLP ethically. You don't want to use it to manipulate people in a bad way. Obviously, the word manipulate has a lot of negative connotations, but people are being manipulated all the time. So it can be a good thing if you manipulate someone. Technically, you get someone on a sales call and you close them, you manipulated them.
Yeah,
but in a good way.
We always hear manipulations about boo-hoo, everyone does it, right? Get with the program. You're getting manipulated all day, every day with the ads that you see on the TV and so on. So you might as well use it to your advantage. You might as well use it positively to sell people positive things that are going to benefit them and upgrade their lives.
Yeah, I think that's everything we have to say. So goodbye.